Hello, everyone. Welcome to the SureLink webinar today. We're excited and pleased to have you with us. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us. We'll give it just another moment here as people are just filing into the meeting, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Looks like we've got a good group joining us as we speak. So we'll just give it just one more moment here and then get started. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. So again, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate you taking the time for this SureLink webinar today. We are hopeful that you've had a wonderful New Year and holiday season. And as you come into the new year and are getting ready for busy season, we're excited to have this opportunity to share a few tips and tricks with you and to have Amy here with us to talk through some of the challenges of getting what you need from your client in a timely manner and make things more efficient for you this busy season. So as you can see, our topic today is how to design engagements that clients can actually complete. And so that'll be our discussion topic for today. By way of introduction, I'm Ryan Smith. I am the head of our customer success and customer support team here at SureLink. I've been here at SureLink for about 5.5 years now, supporting our clients both through onboarding any new customers coming on, as well as all of the things to support our customers that are using our platform so that they can get the most out of the use of the SureLink platform. So it's been a real pleasure to work with our customers and clients over the past 5.5 years. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Amy so she can introduce herself and a little bit more about her.
Well, thanks, Ryan. So excited to be here with all of you today and on this very important topic. So, thank you for taking the time to be here. I hope you'll be able to take at least one action with you after today's session. My company is called the B3 Method Institute. The B3 Method stands for Business plus Balance equals Bliss. And I work with accounting firms and companies from all over the country, really helping on topics like this, just creating strategy, being able to deploy the kind of leadership that's authentic and able to create the boundaries that you need. So even as you're going into a busy time, that you're still able to find fulfillment in the work that you do, but also find joy outside of work as well and create the boundaries that you need. So hopefully some of these tips today are going to get you there in this upcoming season.
Thanks, Amy. Well, let me introduce just a little bit about SureLink. Hopefully, many of you are familiar with us, but if not, SureLink is the industry's leading client collaboration portal. And not only that, but we've also released some new enhancements that take our platform from not only the requesting of documents, which again will be one of the main topics of our conversation today, but into some of those testing procedures as well. But you can see here that SureLink is a well-trusted partner in the accounting industry, and is definitely one that we if you're one of our customers, we love supporting you. I kind of already mentioned that, but also if you're interested in being a customer, we've got a good robust history of helping the accounting industry. So I'm excited to be a part of this webinar today and to get to communicate and collaborate with you all on this topic. So let's jump into our agenda, and we're pretty much just going to keep it here on the agenda slide because we really want this to be a discussion. So there'll be discussion between Amy and I, but we also want it to be a discussion between you all as well. So we will be utilizing the Q&A section of this webinar. So if you have a question along the way, please feel free to put it in that Q&A section. We might be able to get through some of those as we go, But if not, we have definitely reserved some time at the end where we can go through the questions that you've got and provide some answers. So as Amy and I are interactive in this webinar, please feel free to interact with us as well in that Q&A section. We'd love to answer some of your questions as we go. As well as some other housekeeping here for the meeting is you will be able to receive a CPE for this meeting. You'll need to maintain the 15 minutes of attendance here in the meeting. We will have 3 different polls throughout, and you'll need to answer those, and then we'll email that to you within 24 hours. If you've got any questions, just reach out to our team at sales@surelink.com or webinars@surelink.com. We can help you make sure to get that CPE credit for you. But I'm sure you all know the drill on that, so no need to continue to cover that. So you can see we've got a number of discussion topics here, and really to kind of kick this off, and with our conversation here, Amy, one of the things that SureLink has done is we've gone out and done a study with a bunch of client users to understand like what are some of the frustrations that they've seen as they work with accounting firms, and then just be able to look at that with some of the frustrations that accounting firms have working with their clients, and how we can make that relationship better. So many of the firms that we worked with, they describe some of their day-to-day frustrations. They're missing documents from their clients. The things that they've requested of them, they've got half completed. They're constantly nudging their clients, which, they, whether they love to or not, or whether the client loves getting those nudges or not, is always up for debate. And so kind of from your perspective, what's really happening when you look at the interaction between the clients and firms in some of these scenarios?
Two overarching things that I see. One, always, number one issue, whether that's internally in the firm or with clients, is comes down to communication. And the second part folds into that, and that's time. And it's making sure that we spend the right amount of time planning up front and also having the necessary communication with the client so that they clearly understand the things that we need and when we need it as well. So, really important that we figure out different ways of communication that work for us and work for our client so that we can get on the same page and make sure that we're not burned out by the end of any busy season that we're in.
Yeah, that client communication is so important. Have you found any, like, are there certain methods that have been optimal that you've seen, or are there, does it just kind of a little bit depend on the client? Hey, this client really likes when I give them a call, or whatever the case might be there.
I think it's more upfront of
Mhm.
setting what the expectations are and communication guidelines are. So, meaning that there's an expectation from the client side that anytime that you're going to be working together, this is when you're going to have a planning meeting with them. This is when you're going to communicate the information you need. This is the timeline to expect to get that information back to you and so forth, so that they can plan on their side as well and know what is coming. The problem is that a lot of times maybe there's something in the engagement letter about this. However, we don't necessarily reiterate the engagement letter, even if it is, and really kick off a meeting with the client so that we are having that conversation and understanding any delays that might happen on their side. Maybe they've got a changeover of staff, they're having issues internally in their business, and then you can properly plan where someone gets scheduled in versus just making the assumption that everybody's on the same schedule.
Yeah, no, that's great. Um, Kind of looking at some of the research we did, we've really found, and I'm sure the participants will find this really interesting. 87% of our respondents said that client delays are a common issue. I'm surprised it's not 100, but that's the way some of these go. But that really, of these 87% of those respondents, they said these issues really disrupt their engagement timelines, create bottlenecks that ultimately have like a big ripple effect into their workflow and their team planning and scheduling of, all the clients that their teams are working on. And then this one again, a high number here, 95% of our survey respondents reported challenges with document requests, including assessing if they got the right information, securing the necessary supporting documents from their clients, which just kind of highlighted some widespread inefficiencies across the firm. Um, Firms often assume that follow-up issues are caused by unresponsive clients, but when you dig into this deeper, what do you typically find is actually driving some of that breakdown there?
I find typically that there is a, how do I put this? That we're too nice. That's probably the easiest way of putting it, is that there is a disciplined approach of doing this with your clients, and then there's of, well, we don't want the client to get upset. We don't want there to be an issue with the client. They've been a long-term client, whatever that is. The problem is the ripple effect of that is the staff gets very frustrated because they can't get their work done or everything starts coming in at one time. And it really comes down to our language and communication and really setting aside the time to make sure we're planning for each client that we're going to be working on and also looking at what happened last year. Sometimes we weren't the people on the client last year, and it's important to go through the notes, see when things came in, see when things were requested, and really set some discipline with the client in the coming year of what's expected and what will happen if they do not get their documentation in by the dates that you are requesting, because everyone understands business, right? They're trying to keep their business rolling just like you're trying to keep your business rolling. But sometimes we don't actually talk about the economics of someone being unbillable because they were expecting to have certain work in, and then we're then, trying to get them on a different client. There's no learning on that client up front, and that wasn't planned for, and it just starts creating chaos in the system. So it's important to have those open business conversations with your client now and really talk about and decide amongst your team what is the disciplinary approach. If you're, will you not be able to submit on time? Will there be any kind of fee increase because they didn't get you the information on time? What kind of warnings will you provide before you give that fee increase? Really important to assess all of that so that you have a smoother time getting information in.
Yeah, I'm sure clients would much rather have some clear communication and set some, pretty clear guidelines against that rather than incurring those fees, after the fact.
Yeah.
Like if they know they're going to get the fees and there's nothing they can do about it, like they understand that. But I'm sure that they'd much rather have that clear communication from the firm, even if it's a little bit more direct than maybe you're used to doing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, no, that's great. Let's as we jump into really looking at some more of these challenges related to the engagement. Let's jump into our first poll question. So everybody, we're gonna launch our first poll to kind of kick this off here. So for our first poll question is, really related to how to design engagements. Which part of your engagement process creates the most back and forth with clients? So you'll see the options there, and we'll give a moment here for everybody to get an opportunity to answer that polling question. All right, we're close to getting everybody's feedback here in on this one. So we'll give you just another 10 or 15 seconds here to get your answers in, and then we'll go ahead and end this poll. Okay. Well, here we go. So we're going to see the results, and this probably won't be too surprising, but majority of people put all of the above. So clarifying what's needed, tracking which documents are still outstanding, completing or correcting incomplete or incorrect documentation, or coordinating communication across the engagement. So kind of hit across the board there, Amy. Any any surprises there? How that was answered?
I don't think so. I think I think it's important to have a question like that so you realize you're not alone. Uh, Many of us can feel like this is an individual issue or just my organization's issue, but you can see that this is something that everybody is going through and taking small steps to shift it. It is possible to shift it, but it does take the effort that we've got to do ourselves in our own process to make sure that we can turn this around.
Yep. And I just shared those results. Sorry, I didn't actually share them right off the bat, but hopefully everyone can see those results and how everyone was able to answer here on the webinar. So all right, I'll go ahead and stop sharing that. So, as we continue here, Amy, just a couple questions to kind of continue the conversation. And again, reminder to everybody, if you've got any thoughts or questions along the way, please feel free to put them in the Q&A section there for us. But so you've seen many of these engagements from the inside. Where do firms unintentionally create confusion for the clients, maybe even before the work begins, or even during the process? Where do we see some unintentional confusion take place?
I think number one is just assuming that the client understands what we're asking for. Again, it comes back to communication. And I remember in my practice, a client once said to me that, when they had to talk to their accountant, it felt like going to the dentist, that, it's the one place that they didn't feel smart. And so when we don't feel smart or we don't feel we understand something or the whole process, then we avoid it. That's human nature. And understanding that human nature, that as accountants we truly have a language that people don't necessarily understand. And even when we're working with another organization, another accounting department, we're not always working with people that call their schedules the same thing, that have the same acronyms for things and so forth. So it's important that we are clarifying what those things are. We can do that through little videos. We can do that through definitions that we put when we provide lists to them. And we can also do that just by setting a meeting and having a conversation. One of my favorite accountants that I ever worked with myself, because I really enjoyed the fact that they took the time to just sit down and gather the information with me. And that was so helpful and probably helpful for him as well, because then he made sure to get all the things that he needed then. So maybe just reframing from a mindset approach of that you're a coach in this process rather than assuming that they've done this before or they understand what you're asking for, so that you don't have to do it multiple times. Taking a little more time up front can save you hours later.
Yeah, that's great. It's one of those things that I was just thinking of in the InsureLink itself. When you provide those request lists to your clients in the portal, not only can you put in like the description, or excuse me, the title of the request of what you need, but we've got an area where they can put in like a robust description as well. One thing that I've seen firms do that come on board with SureLink is they'll take maybe those document request lists that they've had in Excel forever. And there's not a lot of space to really provide a long description in Excel. It can get a little bit unruly and
Hmm.
cluttered and whatnot. And so that's one of the advantages that we've really seen. And so, if anyone on the call here is a SureLink user, look at some of those templates that you've imported into SureLink. Look at the descriptions and titles that you have in there, And there are some things that you can do to either enhance those so that they're more descriptive or more clear as to what you need from your client so that you're not necessarily having to have some of these conversations, but they've kind of got that information up front right there in the portal. We've really seen that be a big game changer for folks as you refine those and not just kind of take it for face value of kind of what the firm's provided as far as a template, but being able to enhance that for your clients as well can be really beneficial.
I think that could be a huge thing too, is, we've got our terminology that we're going to have on our request list, but where you can customize it for a client to what they call it so that it's very clear the next year and the year after instead of trying to figure that out every year, especially if you have new staff trying to request information where you create something definitional right away and customize for that client so that you don't have to do that again and the client better understands what you're asking for.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of terminology in the accounting industry that people outside of the accounting industry don't know or understand. I think every industry has their own set of acronyms and, and terminology that confuse. It's like speaking another language, right?
Hmm.
We see terms like quarterly financials or updated schedules, and some of those might seem like second nature to us, but can really be confusing for clients. Any other thoughts on, helping to clarify some terminology so that our clients are better prepared when we provide them the list of information they need to provide us?
Well, and I think this is again an important place for a conversation because they may not do quarterly financials, maybe they do. And if you're asking for that, they're not clear on what you're asking for. And really important to understand from their perspective what their skill set is, what they do understand and how you define that for them and explain it to them. That relationship goes such a long way and it helps to secure it long term as well when you show you care and that you're taking the time to not, you know, take up their time and trying to find these documents, that you're trying to speed up their time as well. It's a win-win.
Oh, that's great. I'll give another a Suralink tip as a kind of best practices tip, is really when you're kind of rolling engagements forward, you can set them as inactive. So you can go in and like change some of that terminology and things so that when you make it active for the client, they're not confused. You've got the right terminology and everything in there from the get-go. And so the client can see that right when you make those engagements active for them.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, great. Let's go on to our next topic here, looking at some of the upstream causes, hidden breakpoints here. We're going to do another poll question here. So hopefully everyone's paying attention and ready for that next poll question. And if I can find my poll question option here, sorry. Oh, I had it up, everyone. Sorry about this. There we go. Okay. Hopefully that gave everybody time to pay attention here and get ready for this poll. So, okay, our second poll is how to design engagements. Is where do you see the biggest opportunities to improve client collaboration? So, like we've talked a little bit about here, setting expectations and deadlines at kickoff, using clear, more specific request lists, giving clients a single place to upload and communicate, ensuring visibility for both clients and staff throughout the engagement, or standardizing the entire engagement workflow. We're getting a good chunk of participation here. So we've still got some people putting in their responses. We'll go ahead and give everybody about another 15 seconds to get their responses in, and then we'll go ahead and end the poll here. Okay. I'm going to remember to share the results out of the gate, and I'll hear what we're talking about or see what we're talking about here. So, um, all right. So we had a pretty close match on a couple of them here. Amy, very relevant to really what you kind of kicked this off with is setting those expectations and deadlines at kickoff. But also similar to what we were just talking about, using clear, more specific request lists as well. Were kind of the two top ones that stood out amongst anything else. Any thoughts or anything there?
Yeah, no, it's good to see. And I'd love to see in the chat too, if any of you are doing these kickoff and planning sessions internally and kickoffs with your client, how you're doing it, and we can read it out and share it with the group as well. But it's just always good to get best practices on how you do it because we have, a little bit of slower time, this time of year, and this is a perfect time to really, get ahead, set the expectations, and make sure you're in a good spot before you head into busy season. So would love to hear any feedback you have on doing that.
Awesome. Okay, we'll stop sharing those results. I'm not going to close that window this time, so I've got it ready for our call. Okay. Well, yeah, let's dive into kind of some of these upstream causes here and a few questions, and then maybe we can pause for a moment to see if we've got anything in the Q&A. So, if anyone on the call, if you've got some input there, please put it in, and we can jump into that. But Amy, one thing that we see is teams often don't realize that the engagement starts long before the first request goes out. So, what early decisions really shape whether the engagement is going to run smoothly or if we're going to run into issues and stalls along the way?
I think this comes back to streamlining communication. So I love that you talked about having a place right within SureLink to do these requests. When we do a kickoff or a planning session with our clients, it's important that we're also talking about how we're going to communicate and when and how often. So, are we doing it through email? Are we doing it through text? Are we doing it through our portal? Are we doing it through the request list? Because if we think it's unwieldy for us to have all these different communication channels, it's unwieldy for the client as well. And it makes the client dread having this time of year as well. If we flip the mindset a little bit and really think about how can we make this experience delightful? Is there a way to make this experience delightful for us and for them? And really flip the mindset and think about how we can change the experience so that both sides aren't frustrated and we're able to get the work done that we want to get done. And part of that is making sure that there's not too many requests coming through separately, that we're coming to it as a team and making all of our requests at once. And then if we have additional requests, are we planning that as a team so there's not three or four of us sending requests to the same person and things are getting unwieldy for them and they just can't manage it?
Yeah. One of the things that I've really noticed as I've kind of worked with firms and with their clients, a lot of firms rely on multi ways of many ways of communicating with their clients. So emails, portals, calls, more emails, and then probably a bunch of really cluttered emails, and it's just constantly, so there's kind of communication all over the place. And one of the things that I've noticed is that not everybody's on every communication method. So not everybody's in the loop with what's going on. And how does having that kind of multi-threaded dispersed conversation make these kind of follow-ups and issues with getting what we need from the client just kind of spiral and make things even worse?
And I think that comes back to just really streamlining the communication and making sure with the client up front that this is where they know to check for things. So if it's inside an application, if it's inside your portal, if it is emails, what to expect and what is the turnaround time that they should expect to come back to you with. So if you are sending a request, making sure that you're not asking for the information at the last moment possible that you need it, that you've put in some buffer time to make sure that you're getting it well before you need to start and you've got all the information before you start on a client, and being clear with the client that if you don't have all the information, you're not starting the client. So they do need to keep that communication line open. If they would prefer to meet with you to go over any open items with you and clear them up, offering that as a suggestion rather than having emails flying back and forth can really help in streamlining this.
Yeah, that's great. Well, let's jump to our, oh, actually we've got a someone put some feedback in the Q&A here for us. So Wanda, thanks for putting that in there. Wanda said that the biggest frustration that she's seen is those clients who have figured out how to turn off the notifications and reminders. Yeah, I totally get that. You know, when you're kind of relying on the technology to continually remind and follow up with your clients, and then they just like, look, I don't want to get those emails, I don't want to get that communication, turn it off for themselves. Amy, any thoughts on how you can communicate with your clients in a way that is beneficial for both sides to be able to get updates when, you know, a client's kind of saying, hey, you're really kind of annoying me here.
Yeah. Well, and I think again, coming back to having a conversation about it, understanding that if the reminders are coming through because you don't have the information and you are not going to start the engagement without it, again, this comes back to, what is each side's responsibility? And we've got to discipline as well as them understand the meaning of those reminders. I think too, whatever application you're utilizing, whether it's SureLink or any other application, you should be setting how many reminders you want to go out, because if they do turn it off, just like Wanda's saying, this can cause a big headache and cause you to start having to communicate through multiple channels, which you're trying to avoid. So having that upfront meeting to talk about this is really important. And then making sure you're not flooding them with reminder emails, because what happens is if they're getting a reminder on every single thing, it's just becomes spam and they're deleting it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll give another quick Suralink best practices tip. You know, in the engagement, you can actually send out a status report to your clients, and that's one that you're kind of proactively sending out versus the notifications that they've maybe decided to turn off, right? The default notifications that come through. This can be a proactive one that you send out that shows them the status of all the requests, shows them anything that's overdue or coming due in the next 7 days. And so that can be really helpful to send that out. And so a lot of folks maybe don't know this, but if you talk to your admin, they can actually schedule that, put that on a schedule for your client. So that status report goes out every week or something, you know, to your point of like scheduling that and doing it at an appropriate schedule. The admins can actually schedule that in SureLink to go out. So if folks are on the call and want to know more about that, reach out to our support team. They'd be happy to kind of walk you through the feature set there that could help you with some of that communication. So
Yeah. I think it's so important too with a status report like that, which I love, is having a message on there of reminders that if you don't get it in by this date, we're not starting your work, you know, things like that to remind them of what's in the engagement letter, uh, so that they understand the urgency of getting it done.
yeah, yep, absolutely. And that is part of you know, the scheduled ones go out without additional information, but if you send it manually from the request itself, there's a place you can put in a custom message and give them some of that information that they might need. So
There's another question for you from Kathy.
All right, Kathy, we'll read this one here. Kathy says that I've been using the escalated assignments notification to help us as well as the client focus on a specific product. Can you please confirm that feature only works properly when the request items are specifically assigned to a client and firm users? Kathy, so that's a great question. So that feature in SureLink is really based on individual. So when you look at escalating those, you're escalating it for you and not necessarily your client. Your client would need to go in and configure that for themselves as well. Basically, do that same, click on the bell icon and move it to escalated. And you do have a few options there. So you can escalate all requests. This is a great tip probably for a lot of internal users. You can escalate all of the requests in a request list. So that you'll receive a notification within a 10-minute time frame that clients have uploaded documents. That's a great one, especially if you're like, I'm on a tight deadline. I need to know as soon as that client uploads and I want to get emailed about it, escalate all of them. But for clients, it's probably more useful for them to escalate based on assignment. And that's one of the options that they can choose there. So showing them how to do that on like a kickoff call would be a great way to like train them. Hey, this is a good way to just get the notifications that are truly important to you to just have them do it based on assignment there. So yeah. Uh,
Awesome.
Wanda had a follow-up question on the status report. Do the status reports bypass the notification the client sets so that they get them? Yes, it does. So this is one that you specifically send out. It's kind of outside of that normal notification process that SureLink sends. So if they have turned off their notifications, they will still get that status report that you've sent to them. So great question there. Okay, well, we're going to keep moving here along to our next section as designing engagements clients can actually complete. Let's do our next poll that goes along with that one. So if you're on and ready to answer another poll, we're going to go ahead and launch that one now. All right, so this one is how to design engagements. What would make the most significant difference in reducing follow-ups in your firm? Requests that define what complete looks like, fewer communication channels to manage, real-time visibility into client progress, or consistent workflows that guide clients step by step. And we're getting a uh, good rolling responses in here. So we'll let this keep going here for uh, let's go again another 15 seconds here. We've got most of the people in, so we'll just give you a little bit more here to get the last couple of folks in. Okay, I think we pretty much got everybody there. So we will share the results here for you. So Amy, our top answer here is requests that really define what complete looks like. Is that surprising, or what are your thoughts on
No, it reminds me of a memory of a handyman that I had working at my house, and I'd give him a list, and he'd come in, he's like, "Yep, I'm gonna do that. Yep, I'm gonna do that," and just checked it off before he did it, and it drove me crazy. And I'd be like, getting rid of their check marks. This is exactly the same thing. Like when someone sees a big list in front of them, they just want to check off the boxes that it's done, and really defining what that means, or maybe being more specific about the request so that people are clear what complete means is really important. And you may need to break one request down to three different requests so that you're getting exactly what you need rather than generalizing.
Yeah, no, that's great. Uh one tip that I kind of share with folks is, there's nothing wrong with having one request per file that you need from the clients. The clients can upload multiple files into a request in SureLink, but there's nothing wrong with having it very clear with one file per request, and that helps keep things really organized as well. So.
Hmm.
Um, just a couple questions I think we can cover here on this one. You really talk a lot about designing engagements that clients can actually complete. What does that really look like in practice? What makes a request truly like doable, you know?
Speaking in plain English is really important. I think it's sometimes, again, we come back to acronyms or different, terminology that we utilize for the same thing. When we talk about assets or capitalized assets or long-term assets or, all of these things, we're not actually defining and saying it in plain language so that and giving examples of what exactly this is so that someone clearly understands what you are asking for and can provide back what you need.
Amy, I love this question that I've got here. It's if a firm wants to reduce back and forth by half, what's the very first step you tell them to take?
Have a conversation. I mean, it absolutely does. I mean, the first thing that has to happen is actually doing planning meetings for your engagements and internally planning up front. The problem is we get this client list and we just kind of jump in. And I see a lot of times that this happens not because of not knowing we should do it, but we're so burned out from the last season that we get into a slower time and we say we're going to do it and then we start losing time because we just don't feel like it. And I get it, right? But when we can start like doing the recap of how we felt last time so that we don't feel that way again and we want to have an understanding of what that energy is that we want to create for ourselves during these times, then if we've got a better feeling we're trying to achieve, then planning for it might not be so awful feeling is that once we've gotten through one busy season and we realize how helpful that was and it cut down the time in making sure everything was organized right, we were asking for the right things. I mean, there's so many times that these work paper files get transferred over and over and over again and not updated. There's requests that you just don't need. There's new requests that you have now that you never had before. So just making sure all of that is accurate before you're getting into requesting from the client.
Yeah, I kind of mentioned earlier that, in SureLink, you can provide like a robust description, a title and a robust description there. How do you strike the right balance though? Like, is there too much description that you can put in? How do you find the right balance of giving them enough information, but not like overwhelming them with too much detail?
I do think this again comes back to a conversation of asking a client how much do they need from you? You know, um, and making it where they're not going to feel bad if they're saying, I do need more time with you to understand, all of this and be very specific of, specific requests you're making and do they understand what you're asking for with this and do they have an example? I believe like pictures speak a thousand words. So any visual you can give people, that's always easier than words, because they're going to be able to match that and go, oh, I know what that is. I can pull that easy.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I'm totally a visual learner. That's so helpful in these types of scenarios. Let's jump to our next section here, kind of the behavioral and emotional dynamics. I love that you've already talked a little bit about like, setting clear expectations with our clients and kind of being a little bit firm in that communication.
Hmm.
But as we think about, how do we best communicate with our clients here, right? As I've looked at how clients interact with firms, and back to some of that research that we did with clients, I'll share a few of the statistics that we found in that study. Clients often describe these engagements as like a second full-time job that they've got to do on top of their normal job that they're already doing. And so, not only is it a busy season for the accounting industry, but man, it sure is busy for all the clients that we're working with too. So, a couple stats that I think are interesting is 75% of clients say that managing day-to-day priorities during engagement is one of their biggest challenges. And 60% of those folks want firms to understand their internal workflows better, to understand some of the challenge that they face, gathering and producing the information that the firm truly needs to fulfill their requests. And then 59% also said they want recognition of their limited capacity and resources that they have to be able to get the firm what they need and the timeline that the firm has set. Um, so that really kind of leads to like how can firms have better empathy with their clients and better understand some of the challenges that they're facing, as we're trying to, I think we're both trying to do our best, right? The clients are probably trying to do our best, we're definitely trying to do our best. How can firms better understand and have some more empathy for their clients there?
I think it's really important, especially in this day and age. Most companies you're going to be working with right now, they're getting, you know, so many mandates around technology and AI and change management, and they're feeling burned out because not all technology is ready that they're having to implement, and they're still having to do their job and get it done. And sometimes it's taking them longer. And having that conversation with them before it starts of, here's what's going to be needed and requested, and these are the deadlines. But what do you think might get in the way of you completing that? And what resources do they need in order to make sure that they could get it done on time? Really having that open conversation with them, because if there are resources that you have available at your discretion, there's many people that specialize in being an audit liaison consultant where, they go in and, make sure to get all the information the auditors need rather than having the client have to do it, so that they aren't as disrupted. And then you've got scheduled time for questions and so forth. So, really getting creative when I talked about how do you create a delightful experience. Just because you've always done it one way doesn't mean you have to continue to do it the same way. And figuring out where technology plays and can pull information where you don't have to bother them, and where you can provide resources if needed, and what the costs of those resources would be, obviously independent of yourself, but be able to make those introductions and have that network is extremely important, and really making them feel like they matter, that you understand that they're human, and you want to make sure that both of you are able to accomplish what you need.
Oh, that's great. Let's talk about our kind of last topic here, just the human side of collaboration. And really, like I think this still leads into the empathy and things that we've been talking about here. But as you think about firms that are overwhelmed by the idea of, some of this process improvement, or, maybe it's like just being more intentional and deliberate about some of those kickoff calls with their clients, or really reviewing the request list and making sure it is tailored to that client before they set it to active, and some of those things. What's some other advice that you have for firms of how they can kind of start to really improve the processes that they have without getting overwhelmed as we're going into busy season here, right? What are some other tips and tricks that you've got that you could share with people?
Well, one is that to really review your client list and make sure that these are the clients that you want. So it's important that we're not just keeping clients to keep clients. If every year, no matter what you've done, you've tried all the things that we've talked about, and it still doesn't work, they don't treat you with respect, they're not, coming through. It doesn't matter how much money you make from a revenue perspective because at the end of the day, when you're spinning your wheels and if you're at risk of losing your team members, that is way more costly than losing one client. So having those real honest conversations about, who to keep and who not to keep, not just based on revenue, but also based on personality types and behaviors is an important practice to go through. The other thing is really reviewing your engagement letter. I, recently worked with a partner in a firm, and when we got down to it, because the last couple weeks of busy season, they were so burned out that they're like, I never want to do this again. And I talked to them about, well, what does your engagement letter say? Does it say they have to get it in on time? And basically, the engagement letter said, make your best effort to get it, something to that respect instead of like these are the deadlines of getting your work in that needs to be in by this date. If it is not in by this date, this is what will happen. And having that open conversation and kickoff meeting is so important. So don't go through another year of you want to be nice, but then you get so burned out by the end of the year that you're hating the work that you actually love. And I think that's the one thing we forget is there's little things that we can do to create boundaries, to create more control in our lives and our business processes and the ways that we communicate so that we can enjoy the work that we do love. It's just we don't want to be doing it too much where we get burned out. And that's usually what happens.
Yeah, I love that. I think as, some practical tips that I give again, kind of back to best practices for folks using Suralink, really are around, making sure you've got those clear expectations built into the platform as well. So it's not you constantly having to nag them, but you've kind of got those things in the platform that can help keep them on track too. You look at, maybe you're more intentional with the due dates that you're setting on the request in the platform versus just talking to them about it up front and kind of like you mentioned, Amy, where it's like, hey, do your best, being a little bit more intentional about making sure that we've got clear due dates in the application so they know which requests that I need by this date so that I can start this next part of the process, and then being able to gather the support when I needed, so you can go back and provide information back to them of what additional information you need. So as a more practical tip, just really being a little bit more intentional in your technology use. Be a little bit more intentional with utilizing the comment section in Suralink versus going out to emails. Those types of things can really help streamline your communication, keep everybody on the same page. We've seen firms get a lot of time savings and advantage by really utilizing the platform as much as possible with their clients and training their clients in that way, so that everybody's on the same page and there's no confusion with like it was mentioned, some of those really messy emails that get going back and forth there. Amy, any other thoughts or things there on the kind of that human side of client collaboration?
Yeah, I think just a reset is you're going into a new year and just look at it positively, like rather than with dread. Like our mindset is everything, and our energy will is contagious. So the thing is when we go in having a positive feeling about our clients and having a new way of thinking about how to go about the engagement, it can also shift the reaction that we get as well, versus when you're going in with dread or annoyance, people pick up on that. And then it starts becoming contagious to your staff, it becomes contagious to your clients, and so forth. So take this as, something back from today of just realizing you do have the power to make these little shifts, and over time it becomes big shifts. So you pick one thing this year, You add on next year, you add on the following year, and you start looking back and realizing how big of a change you have made.
That's great. Well, let's jump to our kind of live Q&A. I know we've only got about 5 minutes left, but we'd love to hear from you all that are on this call here in our Q&A section of the webinar. If you got any questions, please feel free to put them in there. If you've got any thoughts or feedback, we'd even love to hear, like, what are some of your ideas that you're going to be carrying back to your teams that you think will be really beneficial for your teams this year. So we'll give just another moment to see if any questions come in. We haven't any come in yet. So we'll give just another moment here for any questions. Okay, Amy, it looks like we don't have any questions coming in. So I just want to end by saying thank you, definitely to Amy for joining us today for this webinar. Thank you for your expertise, your insights, your thoughts. I really came out of this with some good thoughts of how I can better support our clients and things like that. Hopefully, everybody here on the calls come out with some ideas of what you can do a little bit differently this year to make it the best busy season that you've ever had. If you have any questions or anything, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'd be happy to have any kind of conversations with you. If you want to learn more about Suralink, of course, reach out and we'd be happy to have conversations around that. And please be on the lookout for your CPE credit for this as well. We'll be emailing those out. But again, thank you all so much for your time today. We've appreciated you being with us. Thank you for those who have interacted with us as well on the call. We really appreciate your time and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Amy.